Welcome to Dimensional Shift, where we explore and actively deprogram ourselves, seek the truth of reality through expanding our perceptions, and focus on full remembrance of our true selves. As we begin to connect to our true selves, we will also see the truth of this illusory reality and the way it controls us through our manipulated perceptions. As soon as we fully remember our true selves, we will also see the enemy for what it is and how to rebalance the system by freeing ourselves and assisting others to do the same, creating a domino effect into the evolution of human consciousness. Welcome back to Dimensional Shift. We are continuing our review of past episodes. Today we are working through episodes 6 through 8. These episodes are some of my most listened to episodes, and honestly, I think that this is the reason I wanted to do the review. These episodes are such a mess. Listening to them, I'm honestly not even sure what I was thinking at the time, which is really kind of funny and paradoxical. But I'm hoping I can clear up some of the convoluted mess and clarify things that will help you actually start to shift things, and a little bit about manifestation and the things that I've learned, honestly, very recently, within the past month or 6 weeks. So it's very timely that we're doing this now. So episode 6, Why the Mandela Effect Makes Reality Confusing and Surreal, Part 1. Again with the titles. Okay, so first we need to talk about the multiverse, what we're talking about when we're saying shift realities, shift dimensions. What exactly does that mean? From my recent ceremony in Colombia, I was shown sort of like an aspect of the multiverse from an outside perspective. During my third night, I went through a really, really heavy death process, and I was able to see how different aspects of our individual selves live in these different dimensions. So we are actually multidimensional beings, and I don't mean that part of us has a physical body and part of us has an energetic body. It's much more nuanced than that. It's more like the archetypes of ourselves. So for me, the second night I was presented with two of my quote archetypes that I had repressed very, very deeply. And one was approached to me through the tiger, and one was approached to me through the owl. Both of these aspects of me had been repressed into my shadow, and I've been trying to integrate that. It's been difficult process. But these aspects of me are actively within me, but they have been repressed into lower layers of reality. This goes back to the idea of what we're talking about when we mean reality or dimensions. So realities and dimensions are sort of like nesting dolls. And I want to use the word realities because dimensions is part of it, but it's a separate thing. And I don't have the words to describe it yet. But we're talking about realities. They're like nesting dolls. If you've ever seen the Russian nesting dolls where there's a doll inside another doll inside another doll inside another doll. So one aspect of you, for me, we'll say my owl aspect, had been buried in a lower level of reality. It was actually in a totally unconscious reality within me. This gets a little bit dicey when we're talking about whether the reality is within us or outside of us. Something that I've been exploring is that there is no external reality. I'm not sure I'm fully prepared to explain all of that yet. And it could be just something that I'm working through and that it's a paradigm and it's not fully accurate. So I'm not going to go too much into that. But think of yourself as a nesting doll. So reality is a nesting doll and aspects of you are in nesting dolls. So you have these layers. When you're talking about an external reality and Mandela effects, we have certain aspects that align with other people that are experiencing the same, quote, external reality. And if those aspects of yourself and those other people shift together, they're going to remember a certain thing that other people who did not shift don't, or vice versa, right? Sometimes other people shift and we think nothing's changed, but they remember something differently. And I talked about several famous Mandela effects, Mandela himself and the Berenstain Bears and Kit Kat and all of that. And so when we're talking about Mandela effects, we're talking about a collective or part of the collective shifting. And I also talk about personal Mandela effects, which is more specific to reality shifting within your own life. This is also why not everyone experiences the same Mandela effects, because you are either part of the collective that shifts or you're not part of the collective that shifts, but you can also be part of another collective that shifts. So for me, I remember Berenstain Bears, I remember the Kit Kat, I remember Mandela, but there's other ones that I have not experienced. To me, they've always been the same. And it just has to do with what part of that collective you were in, the part that shifted or didn't shift. And you can be part of several different groups there. The interesting part is that Mandela effects don't change the past. This idea of past and future is wrong. There is no past and future. Everything happens now. And that's why I wanted to mention the idea of nesting dolls, because all moments happen here and now. So you're not actually changing the past. You're just shifting into a new layer that has different details. When you move into a path that's more aligned with your higher purpose or your function or moving forward, quote forward, you are moving into a higher density. So you're shedding the more limited, smaller layers of yourself and you're expanding into a higher density. You are growing into the next layer of the nesting dolls. If you are moving through actions that are misaligned, they're maybe more self-centered, they're more egoic, you're contracting yourself down into lower realities. And this is where the idea of feeling imprisoned comes in, because if you're moving down into a more contracted reality, a smaller reality, a more limited reality within yourself or within the quote external, then yes, it's going to feel like you're trapped. It's going to feel like a prison. It's going to feel very limited, and it's entropy, it's destruction. And then, of course, you have to talk about the external forces, quote, external forces that are manipulating this misalignment and this contraction down into the lower realms through the archons and the fear and all of that. It all comes together. I mentioned a little bit about synchronicities in this episode as well. I talked about it being, messages from the future or something. It's more like when you begin to align with the expansive energy, with the aspects of yourself that are higher than you, that are higher density, that are more expansive, you have these synchronicities that can either be seen as a message or they're an alignment of events or details that show that you're on the right track. And even there's this idea of false synchronicities. There are messages that are meant to lead you astray. If you can look at those as being medicine, even if you get led astray, if you think of it as medicine, you can still learn from it and use it to put you back on the right track. This can be hard if you're in the victim mindset, but if you can think of these instances when we get led off track, when we get sent down the wrong rabbit holes, when things don't go how we would like them to, if you can think of it as medicine, it can pull you out of the victim mindset. And staying open to what you can learn from the situation is really important. And it can help you keep moving forward, even when there is resistance, either externally or within you. So shifting realities is not like we think it is. It's not physically moving into a new reality. It's not even a leap of consciousness into another reality. It's literally leaving behind old parts of ourselves and embracing the truer parts of ourselves. And this causes the external reality to shift. One of the groups I was in a couple years ago that I had to leave because it got really weird, the woman talked about this. She had this catchphrase that she used when she decided that somebody no longer fit in her reality. So she would use this phrase, and I'm not going to use it because I really don't want you to end up tracing it back to her. But she would use this phrase as an intention directed toward a person, and then that person, she said, would just magically leave her life. And it was quite literal. I saw it happen several times, but what she didn't realize was happening was that with that intention, she began treating those people differently. And so, yes, then they would leave her life. And so it's kind of a back door to your subconscious to change your reality if you want it to change without it being direct. Like, it's sort of direct, but also not. I don't think she fully realized how differently she was treating them, which ended up causing a lot of hurt feelings and all of this. But that's how shifting realities works, is you set an intention, your behavior changes because of your intention. When your behavior aligns with your intention and with your thoughts, and then reality around you will shift. Such a simplistic way of putting it, and it can be very complex, especially if you're not familiar with the subconscious, the unconscious, and all of that. And that's why healing work, shadow work, all of that is so important, is to bring those subconscious beliefs and all of that forward. If you do get brave enough to try that, just remember that everything that's presented to you is medicine. It can be used to heal and move you forward. You don't have to be resistant to it. It can be really, really uncomfortable at times. Just keep integrating it as you can. Keep thinking of it as medicine. Allow it to heal you. Okay, episode 7, Hacking the Quantum Matrix, Timeline Shifts the Easy Way, Part 2. Convoluted titles. This was the most confusing episode by far. I literally had to take notes of the things I said in this episode just to try and make sense of it. So basically just scratch this episode, please. I've actually been thinking about taking these 3 episodes down just because they are so convoluted. But we'll see. I had deja vu about that, so we'll see. Shifting realities is allowing old aspects of yourself to die and allowing yourself to embody the new, truer aspects of yourself. This goes back to the nesting dolls. So if there is an aspect of you that is afraid of everything, let's say you are an absolute agoraphobic, you don't like to leave your house, you don't want to go out and get sick from COVID, you don't want, all of this stuff. That is in a very contracted, dense state of being. And because of that, your world, literally your world, your external reality will be very, very small, and it will probably be very miserable. If you are able to step out of that fear through whatever means necessary, step out of that fear, you allow that fearful aspect of yourself to die. You will literally widen your world. You will step into a new layer of reality, which includes leaving your house or whatever it is. This process can be very uncomfortable, and it takes a lot of support. Having a really good friend or guide is really important, someone you can talk to, a sounding board, someone just to be there and say, it's going to be okay, you're going to be okay. That can be really important. So shadow work is really, really effective for this. But if you also have a friend to lean on, a guide to walk you through things, that's also really helpful. The most important things you have when it comes to reality shifting is your intention. And following your intention is the will to do it. So, for example, let's say you decide you're hungry and you want to make a sandwich. Your intention is, I'm going to go make a sandwich. Then the question is, do I have the willpower to get up and go make a sandwich? This is kind of manifestation 101, but the mind makes it very complex when it's something more complex than making a sandwich, but it doesn't have to be. If you decide, I'm going to move into a new house in a different state, there's your intention. Do you have the willpower to both navigate the challenges that come up and to accept the opportunities that present themselves? This goes into a whole new layer of self-trust, which is something that you may have to look at very deeply before you're able to manifest really big things. Self-trust, feeling worthy of the things that you want, the intentions that you set, those are really, really huge. There's also this idea of, are you willing to pay the price? Everything that we want in this limited reality has a price. And I'm not talking about money necessarily. There's time, there's mental energy, or like attention and focus. There's vital energy, which is physical energy, and emotional energy, and resources, which can be money, actual resources, or even the people you know. As of right now, most of us are required to pay the price of what we intend. There will be a point in time which we will be able to manifest instantly and without limit, but most of us aren't there yet. So as of right now, we are required to pay the price of one or more of these things. This is, of course, part of the limited matrix system. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times these prices aren't paid to other people. It is a price that you pay to yourself. When you shift realities, I said you have to allow the old aspects of yourself to die, and you have to embody the new aspects of yourself. That's a price that you pay to yourself. When I went through the third night of the last ceremony, I had set the intention months ago that I was allowing myself to die. At the time, it was an egoic myself, and it was parts of me that I didn't even understand what parts they were. And so I had set the intention that I was willing to pay the price of what I was moving into. These prices are things that you pay to yourself. That's why money is such an illusory matrix system thing. It doesn't actually represent anything. If you know anything about the occult or ancient magic systems, until things got very, very out of hand where it was magic for money and you were selling your soul to this and that and the other, there was always still a price that was to be paid when someone came to you for magic or you went to somebody for magic. But it was always sort of a symbolic thing. Offerings to deities and the ancestors was always a symbolic thing of what are you willing to give up for the things that you're asking for. That's a really important thing to think about when you start manifesting and wanting to shift realities. Episode 8, The 4 Steps to Timeline Shifting and How to Get Started Today, Part 3. Guys, these titles are so awful. Okay, again, you have to pay the price. You're going to have to let the contracted, limited parts of yourself die so that you can step into the new aspects of yourself. This can be uncomfortable. It will be uncomfortable, and it's going to cause difficult life changes. But that's literally what reality shifting is. Even if you think about it in a linear timeline fashion, if you are tired of feeling like a slave to your significant other and you're unhappy with them, you have to let the part of you die that is allowing that. And yes, that's going to cause you to leave them. Like that's literally what reality shifting is. If you want to change your reality, you change and your reality changes. It's a mirror, it's a reflection. A reality is just a mirror for us. And that's why I'm working through this idea of, is there an external reality, since reality is just a mirror for us? It's probably just something I'm working through. I'm sure there's some kind of absolute that I'm not seeing yet, but that's where I am. Manifestation and timeline shifting are not the same thing. Manifestation is bringing something into your reality through one of the, quote, gateways that I mentioned. That's time, vital energy, focus, and mental energy and resources. Reality shifting is an internal process. The question then becomes, what do you want? And so many times we have these ideas of what we think we want, but it's something that someone has told us we want, or what society expects us to want, or the social contracts that we've agreed to just so we can live in society without too much resistance. The more you learn about yourself, the more you'll learn that your actual self wants none of this. I've yet to meet someone who has really dug into the deep layers of themselves and wants to exist in this society. This society is a mess. And anybody who begins to understand who they are, how to live peacefully and in harmony and in balance, we don't want this. And that's why we have to get rid of the shoulds, the have-tos, the musts, the gottas, all of those. They got to go so that we can begin to create a consensus reality together that is more aligned with our true selves. If you're getting a lot of resistance and fear, that means you're on the right track. Use it as medicine. Face your fear. Fear is not an emotion that you can transmute. It's not something that you can just allow yourself to feel like endlessly. Fear is something that has to be faced. And once you begin to face it, once you learn that process of facing it, you'll understand that fear is illusory. It's a mental construct. It doesn't actually exist. I'm not talking about mortal peril where your physical body is in danger. But there's a lot of existential terror, which is fear of the mind, it's fear of the ego that has nothing to do with mortal peril. And eventually you do realize that even mortal peril is a type of existential fear because there is no death, but that's something that you will approach when you're ready to. Don't let the inner resistance keep you blocked, because it will. Let yourself heal, face your fear. If you can see these resistances and the fear as medicine, then you will find gratitude for them when they come up, because it's giving you the opportunity to heal something. So I was talking about manifesting a sandwich. When you're hungry, you get up and you make a sandwich. Why don't we consider that a miracle? It's perspective, right? Is it not a miracle that we can walk into our kitchen and create a meal? It's not a miracle because we do it every day. We make our food every day. Now it's so convenient that, we go into the kitchen and we turn on our stove and we can cook food instantly. We don't have to go out and forage for firewood. We don't have to go out and hunt for our food. It's not a miracle because it's something we do every day. What do we think is a miracle now that maybe later in our life or in 500 years or 1,000 years that they're going to think is just an everyday occurrence? That's where we are. We're at this point of evolution, if you want to call it that. But we're at this point where we can start redefining what's a miracle, what is a human being capable of, all of these things. But if you can find that gratitude within yourself for your fears, for your resistance, and use it as medicine to heal and grow, then you will be able to start shifting. It's all about perspective. If you found this episode helpful or insightful, please share it with a friend and leave a review or comment. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I host twice weekly open discussions on the podcast topic on our Discord server. If you'd like to join, head to dimensionalshifter.com/Discord. If you're on Reddit, come join the subreddit r/dimensionalshifters or send me a DM. My username is dimensionalshifter. Keep deprogramming, keep connecting, keep listening to your intuition. This is it. This is what we've been searching for our whole lives. Connection to our true selves.